She whispered a secret that could shatter everything, and no one listened, until her mother started digging, risking everything to expose the darkness hiding behind the church's smile. What she uncovered will leave you questioning how deep evil can hide behind a kind face, and how far a mother will go to protect her child. This is a story of innocence betrayed, courage tested, and a community turned upside down. But the most shocking twist, the real monster was someone everyone trusted, and the truth was much closer than anyone dared to imagine. You won't believe what happens next. How one quiet girl's voice sparks a fight for justice that no one saw coming. If you think you can handle the truth, hit that like button now and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this happen everywhere, and it's time to shine a light on what really goes on behind closed doors. Stay tuned. What happens at the end will change everything you thought you knew. I woke up early on Sunday morning. The sun was shining through the window. I didn't want to get out of bed. I just lay there for a while, listening to the quiet sounds of the house. My mom was already up in the kitchen, humming a song. I could smell the smell of pancakes. Today was another church day. I liked going to church. I liked singing and sitting with my friends. But I was also a little nervous. Sometimes I felt different at church. I didn't know why. My mom came into my room. She smiled and sat on the edge of my bed. "Are you ready, Ella?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Yes, I'm ready," I said quietly. Didn't want to speak too loud. My voice was small, like a whisper. We got dressed and went to church together. The church was a big building with tall windows and a big cross on the wall. Inside, people were talking and singing. Everyone was happy. I liked it there. I felt safe most of the time. At church, I saw James. He was the youth pastor. He was tall, with kind eyes and a big smile. He wore nice jeans and a bright shirt. He always made jokes and made kids laugh. Everyone liked him. James was very friendly. He talked to all the kids, especially the boys and girls his own age. He told funny stories and gave hugs. I liked him too. Sometimes I wished I could be like him, confident, happy, and brave. But today was different. Something new happened. When I was sitting in the little chair with my friends, I saw James looking at me. He smiled and winked. I felt a little strange inside. I didn't know why. Later, in the quiet of the church service, I was sitting next to my mom. I looked at her and wanted to tell her something. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. My voice felt stuck. I tried again, but I still couldn't speak. Instead, I just looked down at my hands. After the service, my mom asked, "Did you have a good time today, Ella?" I nodded. I wanted to tell her what I was feeling, but I couldn't. I only whispered, "Yes." On the way home, I thought about James. He was so nice to everyone. But today, something felt wrong. I didn't like the way he looked at me sometimes. I didn't understand it, but I knew I didn't feel safe. When we got home, I went to my room. I sat on my bed and looked out the window. I wondered if I should tell my mom what I felt, but I was scared. I didn't want to upset her. I didn't want to cause trouble. That night, I went to sleep thinking about that strange feeling. I was quiet inside. I loved my church and my friends, but I also felt confused and worried. I didn't know what would happen next. As I closed my eyes, I heard my mom's voice. "Ella, remember, if you ever feel scared or upset, you can tell me. I will always listen." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to feel safe, but I didn't know what to do yet. This was the first day, the beginning of a new story. A story about trust, fears, and a secret that needs to be heard. I woke up on a bright morning. The sun shined through the window. I felt a little tired, but happy to see a new day. My mom made breakfast. She was busy, but smiled when she saw me. "Good morning, Ella," she said. Her voice was warm and kind. "Good morning, Mom," I whispered back. I liked her smile. It made me feel safe. At breakfast, we talked about my school and her work. I ate quickly because I wanted to go to church later. I loved church. I loved singing, seeing my friends, and listening to Pastor James. He always made me feel happy. But this morning, something was different. I kept thinking about what I whispered last night. I remembered how I whispered James's name. It felt like a secret. I didn't tell anyone, not even my mom. After breakfast, I went to my room. I sat on my bed and looked at my hands. I felt a little nervous about going to church. I liked James. He was kind and funny, but sometimes I felt strange around him, like something was not right. At church, everything looked normal. The choir sang loudly. People smiled and talked. I sat next to my friends. I felt safe with them. Then, Pastor James stood up and spoke. His voice was loud and friendly. After church, he came to talk to us kids. "Hey everyone, how are you today?" He asked with a big smile. "Good," we all shouted. James looked at me. He smiled. I smiled back, but I felt a little nervous inside. I remembered last night. I remembered whispering his name. I wondered if I should say something or keep quiet. After church, I played outside with my friends. We ran and laughed. Sometimes I looked around and saw James talking to other grown-ups. He looked happy and important. That afternoon, I sat with my mom. We drank juice and talked about church. She asked, "Did you have fun today?" "Yes," I whispered. I didn't want to talk much. I was thinking about James, about last night, about what I whispered. Later, I went to my room. I sat on my bed and looked at my teddy bear. I closed my eyes and thought. I wanted to tell my mom something, but I didn't know how. Suddenly, I remembered something. When I was alone, I whispered again. I whispered James quietly, just to see if I could say it. It felt like a secret, like a small voice inside me. I wondered, should I tell my mom, or should I keep quiet? I didn't know what to do. That night, I lay in bed. The room was dark. My mom kissed my forehead. "Sweet dreams, Ella," she whispered. "Thank you," I whispered back. I closed my eyes and thought about the secret, about James, about what I felt. I didn't have the words to say what I thought, but I knew one thing. I had a secret, and I was starting to realize that secrets can be big or small. Some secrets can be dangerous. In my quiet mind, I promised myself one thing. I needed to be brave. Maybe someday I would find my voice and tell what I knew, because I knew that silence can be heavy, and secrets can hide the truth. Today was a quiet beginning, but I felt deep inside that something was changing, and I didn't know what would happen next, but I was ready to listen to myself. That was episode 2. It's quiet, but it's the start. The start of listening to that tiny voice inside me, the voice that wants to be heard. I wake up early on a quiet morning. The sun is just starting to shine through the window. I feel nervous and a little bit scared. Today is a new day, but I don't know what will happen. I look at my mother sleeping peacefully beside me. She is still tired from last night. I want to tell her everything, but I am afraid. Instead, I press my hand to my chest and breathe slowly. I'm trying to stay brave. I quietly get out of bed. I put on my favorite dress. It's simple and soft. I don't want to wake my mother, so I tiptoe out of the room. I walk into the small living room. It's quiet and still. I sit on the couch and take out my tiny notebook. I write down my feelings. I write about James, the youth pastor. I think about what I whispered last night. I whispered his name. It felt strange but important. I want to be brave enough to say it out loud someday. Later, I hear my mother get up. She comes into the room and sees me sitting there. She looks at me with kind eyes. "Good morning, sweetheart," she says softly. "Did you sleep well?" I nod and smile a little. Yes, I did. She sits beside me and puts her hand on my shoulder. "You seem quiet today. Is everything okay?" I want to tell her. I want to tell her about James and my secret, but my throat feels tight. I just nod again. I know she loves me and wants to help. Maybe I will tell her soon, maybe today. After breakfast, we go to church. It's a bright, sunny day. The church is full of people singing and praying. I hold my mother's hand tight. I feel safe with her. But inside, my heart beats faster. I remember last week when I whispered James's name in my sleep. I remember how I felt when he looked at me too long. At church, James is smiling and shaking hands with everyone. He is friendly and kind. Kids run around and everyone seems happy. I watch him closely. I notice how he talks to the kids and how he laughs loudly. But I also notice something strange. When no one is looking, I see him looking at me or at Ella. His eyes are soft but sharp. I look away quickly. I feel a little scared, but I don't know why. After church, I stay close to my mother. She talks with other grown-ups. I sit quietly and watch James. He comes over and kneels next to me. He ruffles my hair and says, "Hi, sweetheart. How are you today?" I smile shyly. "Fine." He leans in a little closer and whispers, "You're special, Ella. You're a good girl." I look down. I feel warm but also nervous. I want to tell him something, but my voice is still small. Maybe soon I will find the words. Later that afternoon, I go home with my mother. I sit in my room and think about the day. I look at my notebook again. I want to write more about James, about how he looks at me, about how I feel inside. I want to be brave and say the truth, but my words are stuck. Suddenly, I hear a small sound. It's a whisper. I turn around and see Ella, my little sister. She is quiet, like me. She whispers, "James." I freeze. I remember what I whispered last night. I remember how I feel when I think about him. I wonder if Ella knows something I don't. I ask softly, "What did you say, Ella?" She looks at me with big eyes. "James," she repeats. I feel a lump in my throat. I want to ask her more, but I stay quiet. I think about my secret. I think about how I want to tell someone, but I also feel scared. I don't want anyone to get hurt. I just want to be safe. That night, I sit alone in my bed. I hold my pillow tight. I think about everything. I realize that my voice is getting stronger. I want to find the courage to speak out, to tell the truth. I know it's scary, but I also know I can do it. Tomorrow might be a new day. I might find a way to say what I feel. I might be brave enough. I close my eyes and take a deep breath. I promise myself to stay strong. And I fall asleep, dreaming of a day when I can speak freely, when I can tell someone about James and what he did. Because I know now that my voice matters, that silence can be dangerous, and that I am brave enough to try. The morning comes again. I wake up ready, a little more brave than yesterday. I know I can face whatever comes next. I'm learning that even small voices can make a big change. And that's how I will find my courage, to speak out and be heard. The story isn't over, it's just beginning. I sit quietly in my room. My eyes look at the small camera my mother secretly set in the corner. She told me it was for safety. I nodded, but my heart beats fast. I feel scared, but I know I have to do this. I want to find the truth. It is early morning. The house is quiet. I hear my mother moving around downstairs. I take a deep breath and hold my notebook. I open it and write, "James." I write slowly, feeling my hand tremble a little. I want to whisper his name out loud, but I can't. I'm still scared of what might happen. Suddenly, I remember something. When I whispered James's name yesterday, my mother looked at me with a strange face. I saw worry in her eyes. Maybe she is starting to believe me. Maybe she is listening now. I put my notebook down and sit very still. I close my eyes and think about James. He is always smiling and friendly at church. He plays games with us and tells jokes. But sometimes I feel something strange. He looks at me in a way that makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it. I want to tell my mother, but I am scared. What if she doesn't believe me? Or what if James gets angry? After a while, I hear footsteps coming up the stairs. It is my mother. She comes into my room, her face soft but worried. I look at her and hold out my notebook. I want her to understand what I feel. She takes the notebook and reads my words. Her eyes get big. She looks at me and says, "Ella, I believe you. I think something is wrong with James. My heart feels heavy. I've been quiet for so long. I thought my voice didn't matter. But now my mother believes me. I feel a little stronger inside. That day, my mother starts to watch James more carefully. She follows him secretly when he is at church. She sees him talking to some kids, but she also sees him being too close to me sometimes. She looks worried, but she stays calm. In the evening, my mother says, "Ella, I think we need to find a way to get proof. We have to be brave and careful. Do you understand?" I nod. I know it is dangerous, but I want to help. I want to stop James from hurting anyone else. That night, I sit on my bed. I pick up my notebook again. I write, I want to speak. I want to be brave. I don't say it out loud, but I feel it in my heart. The next day, I decide to do something more. I ask my mother if I can put a small camera in my room. She is surprised, but she agrees. She says, "This might help us find the truth, but we must be very careful." I hide the camera behind my stuffed animals. I press record and hope that when James comes next, I will see what he really does. Later, I hear my mother call me. She tells me she has found some strange messages from James on her phone. He was talking about being alone with me again. She looks angry and sad. She says, "We can't let him hurt anyone else. We have to do something now." I hold her hand. I want to be brave like her. I want to protect my sister and myself. That night, I watch the videos from the camera. I see James acting nice, but I also see him being controlling. Sometimes he touches my shoulder too much. Sometimes he whispers things I don't like. I see that I am not imagining things. He is not a good person. My mother looks at the videos with tears in her eyes. She says, "Ella, you did a brave thing. Now we can show these to the police. We can stop him." I feel a small hope inside me. Maybe, just maybe, we will be safe. But I also feel tired. Being brave is hard. I wish I didn't have to do this. I wish James would go away and never come back. I hug my mother. She hugs me back tight. I know she will do everything to keep me safe now. That day, I learned something very important. Even if I'm small and silent sometimes, my voice can be powerful. It can help find the truth and stop bad things from happening. I look at my notebook and write again. I am brave. I smile a little, even though I'm still scared. I know that speaking out is the first step, and I will keep trying no matter what. This is the start of a new day, a day where I will find my voice and stand up for what is right. I woke up on a new day. My heart felt heavy, but I was also a little brave. So much had happened, and I knew I needed to do something. I held my notebook close, and I looked at it carefully. It was the only way I could really say what I felt. Last night, my mother and I watched the recording she had made. She had set up a small camera in the corner of Ella's room. It was hidden, so nobody could see it. She told me, "We need proof. If we show people what James does, maybe they will believe us." I nodded slowly. I was still scared, but I knew it was the right thing. I wanted James to stop hurting me. I wanted to be safe. In the quiet of the morning, I sat on my bed and looked at my notebook. I decided to write what I couldn't say out loud. I wrote about James, about how he smiled and said nice things, but I also wrote about how he made me feel small and scared. I took a deep breath. Today, I was going to try to be brave enough to tell someone. I didn't know how yet, but I felt that I had to try. Just then, my mother came into the room. She looked at me and smiled softly. "Ella," she said gently, "we are going to do something important today. We are going to show the truth to the people who can help." I looked at her, feeling a little stronger. I wanted her to know I was ready. I nodded again. Later that morning, we went to see the sheriff. His name was Mr. Carter. He was a kind man, but he looked serious when we told him everything. My mother showed him the recordings. She pressed play on her phone. I watched James talking to Ella. He was smiling, but I saw the way he looked at me. His eyes were cold sometimes, and I saw him whispering things I didn't like. The sheriff listened carefully. He looked at us and then at the recordings. "Ella," he said softly, "your words are very brave. Thank you for telling the truth." I felt my chest get warm. I looked down and whispered, I didn't want to be quiet anymore. The sheriff nodded. "We will take care of this. James will have to answer for what he did." That made me feel a little lighter. I looked at my mother, and she smiled at me with pride. But not everyone believed us right away. Later that day, I saw James in the church. He was still smiling and acting friendly, but I could see behind his smile, something was wrong. Some church leaders talked quietly in a corner. They looked worried. I heard one of them say, "We don't want trouble. We have to protect the church." I felt angry. I wanted them to see the truth. I wanted them to believe me and my mother, but they closed their ears. They looked away. That made me sad. I looked at my mother. She looked tired, but strong. I knew she would keep fighting. We would not stop until everyone saw what James really was. In the afternoon, I sat outside with my mother. We watched the sky. The sun was shining, but I knew dark clouds were gathering. Things were changing. I held my notebook close again. I looked at the words I had written. I was starting to feel like my voice mattered. Maybe someday I could speak out loud. Maybe someday everyone would believe me. For now, I was still silent on the outside, but inside I was learning to be brave. And that was enough to keep going, because I knew that telling the truth was the first step to making things right. And I was ready. I woke up early on the morning of episode 6. My heart was pounding a little. Things had started to change. I had been secretly recording James's bad actions. I had hidden a small camera in Ella's room. I knew I had to be brave, but I also felt scared. I looked at the camera and whispered to myself, "I will do this. I will find the truth." I wanted to help Ella. I wanted to stop James from hurting anyone again. My mother was in the kitchen. She looked tired but determined. She knew I was trying to help. She looked at me and said, "Are you ready for today?" I nodded. I wanted her to see I was serious. We decided to go to the church. We wanted to find James and show him the videos. We knew it was risky, but we could not let him get away with what he did. We had proof now. When we arrived, the church was quiet. A few people were talking softly. I looked around and saw James talking to some boys. He looked friendly, but I remembered what he had done to Ella. I clenched my fists. I was angry. My mother took a deep breath and whispered, "Stay close. Be brave." I nodded again. I was ready to face whatever happened. We walked toward James. He smiled at us as if nothing was wrong, but I knew better. I looked at him and said, "We need to talk." James's face changed. His smile disappeared a little. I felt a little scared, but also strong. I pulled out my phone. I showed him the videos I had taped secretly. "Is this true?" I asked quietly. "Did you do these things to Ella?" James's eyes got wide. He looked surprised and angry. He tried to say, "It's not what you think," but I pressed the phone closer. I said, "Look at the proof." My mother also spoke. "James, we know what you did. Ella and I have been trying to tell the truth." James looked at us. His face was hard. "This is all a mistake," he said, but his voice trembled just a little. I could tell he was scared. Suddenly, James tried to act nice again. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was just trying to help." But I remembered what Ella whispered that day, that she felt scared and alone. My mother looked at him and said, "It's over. You can't lie anymore." She sounded strong. Some people in the church started to listen. They looked at the videos and listened to what we said. They looked confused and upset. I saw some faces turn away. Others looked angry. I felt tired, but proud. Maybe now everyone would see the truth. Maybe Ella would be safe. But James didn't give up. He looked at us with a sneer. "You are making a big mistake," he said. "You don't know everything." I looked at him and said, "We know enough. We will stop you." My mother put her hand on my shoulder. "We will protect Ella," she said softly, "and we will make sure James can't hurt anyone again." Suddenly the church door opened. The sheriff walked in. He looked serious. He had heard everything. He looked at James and said, "James, I need to talk to you. Come with me." James's face fell. He knew he was caught. His smile was gone. He didn't say a word. He just followed the sheriff out of the church. Everyone watched in silence. I felt a little tired, but also happy. We had done something important. We had shown the truth. My mother looked at me and smiled faintly. "You were brave today," she said. I felt proud inside. I knew Ella's whisper had started something big. We waited as the sheriff took James away. I looked at Ella, who was standing quietly beside us. She was still silent, but I knew she was feeling a little stronger now. The church was quiet again. People started talking softly, some sad, some angry. I knew this was only the beginning, but I also knew that we had taken a big step. I looked at my mother and Ella. I thought about how hard it was to speak out, but I also knew that silence can be dangerous. Sometimes the only way to stop a monster is to find your voice and be brave. And I promised myself I would keep fighting for Ella and for the truth, no matter what happened next. I woke up early on this quiet morning. My mind was full of thoughts. Last night, something big had happened. James was no longer in the church. The sheriff had taken him away. I looked at my mother. She was sitting on the sofa, tired but calm. "I feel strange," I said softly. My mother looked at me and smiled gently. "That's normal," she said. "You did the right thing." I nodded. I was proud, but also scared. I knew that everything was changing. The church was no longer the same. James was gone, and the truth was out. Still, I felt a small hope growing inside me. Later that day, I sat with my mother in the kitchen. She was drinking tea, and I was holding my doll. We didn't talk much. It felt like the air was full of questions. Suddenly, my mother looked at me. "Ella," she said softly, "you helped us all. You spoke when it was hard. I am proud of you." I looked down. "But I am still scared," I whispered. "What will happen now?" She gently touched my hand. "We will be safe," she said. "The truth is out, and now everyone knows. The bad man will not hurt us again." Just then, the phone rang. My mother answered it quickly. I listened carefully. She nodded as she listened to whoever was on the other side. A few minutes later, she hung up and looked at me. "That was the sheriff," she said. "He said James is going to jail. The court will decide what happens next." I felt a little happy. I knew that was the right thing. James shouldn't hurt anyone again, but I also felt tired. All the stress made my head ache. My mother sat beside me. "Ella," she said softly, "you are very brave. You showed courage when it was hard. That is very important." I looked at her and asked, "Will they listen to me now? Will I be safe?" She nodded. "Yes, honey. The sheriff and the police are making sure you and others are safe. And the church will change. They will learn that truth is more important than hiding secrets." That made me feel a little better. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to trust that everything would be okay now. Later, I went outside with my sister. We played in the yard, feeling the sun warm our faces. I looked around the big church building. It looked different now. Less like a safe place, more like a place trying to heal. I remembered how I whispered James's name in secret. That whisper started all this. It was like a tiny voice that grew strong. It helped bring the truth out into the light. As I played, I thought about what I learned. Sometimes, being silent is easy, but speaking out, even a little, can make a big difference. It can help stop the bad things from hiding. That night, I sat with my mother again. We read a story before bed. I felt tired but peaceful. I was learning that even small voices can be powerful, that it's okay to be scared, but it's also okay to be brave. Before I closed my eyes, I whispered softly, just for myself, "I am heard now." And I knew deep inside that I was starting to find my own voice, the voice that can help make good change. The day ended quietly, but inside me a new strength was growing. I was ready for whatever came next, because I knew that truth and bravery are stronger than secrets and lies. And I was learning that even very small whispers can turn into a loud, clear voice that can change the world. I woke up feeling a little nervous. Today was the day I knew everything would change. My heart beat fast, but I also felt strong inside. I looked at my mother. She was sitting in the chair, her face calm but tired. I wanted to tell her I was ready. I wanted to say everything I knew, but I couldn't speak much yet. I still felt scared sometimes. Still, I knew I had to be brave. My mother looked at me and smiled gently. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. I nodded. I was ready to face whatever was coming. That morning, we went to the church. It was quiet outside. The sun was shining, but I felt like I was walking into a storm. My stomach felt tight. I knew I had to stand up for myself and Ella. Inside the church, everything looked the same. The big room, the chairs, the cross on the wall. But I felt different. I felt like I was carrying a heavy weight. My mother held my hand tight. We saw the sheriff waiting at the back of the room. He was a tall man with kind eyes. He had come because he knew what was true. He believed us. James was there too. He was smiling, acting like everything was fine. I saw his face and felt my stomach twist. My body remembered what he had done, even if I couldn't say it out loud. My mother stepped forward. Her voice was strong but gentle. "James," she said, "we need to talk." James looked surprised. He tried to smile. "What's going on?" he asked. My mother took out her phone. It had videos she had made secretly. Videos of James doing things I didn't want to remember. Things that showed he was not a good man. "Look at this," my mother said. She played the video for everyone to see. The room got very quiet. I saw James's face in the video. I saw how he acted nice but did bad things when no one was looking. James's smile faded. His eyes looked worried. He tried to say something, but no words came out. He looked at the sheriff and my mother. The sheriff stepped closer. "James," he said firmly, "we have proof. You can't hide anymore." James's shoulders sank. He looked like he was losing his mask of charm, the mask that made everyone trust him. I felt happy, but also scared. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I wanted everyone to see the truth. My mother looked at me and squeezed my hand. "Ella," she said softly, "you did it. You spoke out. You told the truth." I looked at her and nodded. I felt brave now, even if I still was a little afraid. Suddenly, James turned and ran toward the door. He pushed past the sheriff. He wanted to escape, but the sheriff was quick. He caught James gently but firm. James couldn't run away now. The police came and took James away. The church was quiet. No one spoke for a moment. Then, I saw some people start to cry. They looked confused and sad. They had trusted James, but now they saw the truth. The head pastor came over. He looked worried. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "We didn't see the truth before. We should have believed Ella and her mother." My mother nodded. It's time for the truth to come out. No more hiding. That day, I felt like a little hero. I had spoken out. I had shown the truth. It made me feel strong and brave. Ella was quiet a bit longer. She still didn't talk much, but I knew she was learning how to speak with her heart. I knew she could be brave, even if she was scared sometimes. The church was never the same after that. It was broken, but it was also starting to heal. People were talking about what really mattered, about being kind and brave, about listening and trusting the right voices. My mother looked at me and smiled again. "We did it," she whispered. I smiled back. I felt happy and tired, but I knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning, because now I knew that speaking out can make a big difference, that even a small voice can turn into a loud, brave cry for justice. And I was ready to keep speaking, for Ella, for myself, and for everyone who needs to be heard. I woke up early that morning. The light was soft through the window. I looked at Ella sleeping peacefully in her bed. She was quiet now, but I could see she was stronger than before. She had come a long way. It felt good to know she was safe. We had been through so much. Now, Ella was starting to speak more. She was beginning to trust herself again. I was proud of her. I kissed her on the hand and whispered, "Today is a new day. We are getting stronger." We went downstairs to the kitchen. The house was quiet. I made breakfast while Ella sat at the table, playing with her small doll. She looked at me and smiled a little. "Ella, do you want to go for a walk today?" I asked. She nodded quickly. I wanted her to feel free and happy again. We needed to leave the house for a little while, to see the outside world and breathe fresh air. While we ate, I looked at my phone. I remembered what had happened last night. I opened the camera app to check the videos I had saved. The camera had recorded everything. James's manipulative words, his actions that hurt Ella. It was proof. I took a deep breath. I was going to do what I had to do. I was going to show the truth to the police. I knew it was the right thing to do. James's lies were finished. Everything was coming out now. After breakfast, Ella and I put on our jackets. We headed outside. The sun was shining. Birds were singing. I felt a little nervous, but also strong. I wanted Ella to know she was safe now. We walked to the park nearby. Ella held my hand tightly. As we sat on a bench, I looked at her and said, "Ella, I want you to know something important. You are very brave. You told the truth. That was not easy, but you did it. I am so proud of you." Ella looked at me with her big eyes. She didn't say anything, but I could see her face was happy. She was beginning to believe in herself. Just then, I remembered the police. I took out my phone and opened the message app. I typed quickly, "Today I will meet with the officers. I will give them the proof about James. It's time to stop him from hurting anyone else." Ella nodded. She understood. She was part of this now. Her whisper had started something much bigger. It was the beginning of justice. We stayed at the park for a little while longer. We watched the children playing and the trees swaying in the wind. It felt peaceful. But I knew the fight was not over. We still had to face the next step, telling the police and making sure James would not hurt anyone again. When we went back home, I called the sheriff. I told him about the video and the evidence I had. I explained everything we saw and heard. He listened carefully and promised to come that afternoon. I looked at Ella again. She was calmer now. She was growing stronger every day. I held her close and whispered, "No matter what happens next, I will always be here for you. We will face it together." The doorbell rang later that day. The sheriff arrived. He was kind and serious. I showed him the videos on my phone. He nodded and took notes. We agreed to go to the police station that very afternoon. As we waited, I thought about everything. All the lies, the betrayal, the hurt. But I also thought about the truth shining bright. The truth was like a light that could not be turned off. It was the only way to make everything right again. Ella sat beside me, holding my hand. She looked brave. I knew she still felt fear, but she was also learning to be strong. I looked at her and smiled. "Today is a big day," I said. "We are going to do what is right. We will show everyone what James really is, and then we can finally start to heal." The sun was setting as we left to meet the police. I felt a mix of hope and worry. But I also felt that, together, we could face anything. Ella's whisper had started to change, and now the truth was coming out. I took Ella's hand and looked into her eyes. "Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for being brave. We're going to make sure no one else gets hurt." And as we walked toward the police station, I knew one thing for sure. The darkness could not stay forever. The truth was stronger, and we would fight for what was right. I looked around the small room. It was quiet now. Ella was sitting on the couch, holding her mother's hand. They both looked tired but relieved. Outside, the sun was beginning to rise. It was a new day. This was the end of a long and hard journey. I felt a strange mix of feelings: hope, sadness, and even anger. But I knew one thing for sure. The truth had come out. Justice was starting to happen. Ella was no longer silent. She slowly opened her mouth and whispered, "Thank you." Her voice was small, but it was a start. I looked at her and smiled. I knew she was becoming stronger. She was learning to trust herself. Her mother hugged her tight. "You are so brave," she said softly. "You are safe now. We will protect you." I stepped back and looked at everyone in the room. Ella's face was calm, but also a little scared. Her mother looked proud and tired. She had fought so hard to find the truth and to keep her daughter safe. Just a few days ago, everything felt so dark and broken. But now, the light was shining through. James, the man who had hurt Ella, was gone. The church leaders who ignored her were being held accountable. The sheriff had done his job, and justice was beginning to work. I remembered how much Ella had been through. She couldn't speak before. She was afraid to tell anyone. But now, she was starting to speak more and to trust again. That was a miracle. I took a deep breath and spoke quietly. This is not the end. It is just the beginning. We have to keep going. We have to help others who are scared or hurt. We have to remember that truth is always stronger than lies. Ella looked at me and nodded. Her eyes were bright with new courage. Her mother smiled and wiped away a tear. Outside, I saw the police and some church members talking. Some looked angry, others looked sad. But everyone knew one thing. It was time to change. It was time to be honest and brave. The community was hurt, but it was also healing. People were starting to see what was true and what was false. They were beginning to learn that silence can be dangerous. Speaking out, even when it's hard, can bring light into the darkness. Ella's whisper reminded me of something very simple but very important. Even small voices can make big changes. Sometimes it takes a lot of courage to speak, but once you do, things can get better. I looked at Ella and her mother again. I felt hope. I knew that their journey was not finished, but I also knew that they had already taken the first big step. I softly said, "Remember, you are never alone. You are stronger than you think." Ella smiled, and her mother squeezed her hand. The sun was shining through the window now, and I believed that, from this moment on, everything would start to get better. Because sometimes the truth is the only way to heal, and the smallest voice can start a big change. That was the end of our story, but it was also the start of a new chapter, one filled with hope, honesty, and the courage to speak out.